Welcome to the Black Belt in Leadership podcast, where we take the timeless wisdoms of martial arts and turn it into practical strategies for today's leaders. I'm Aslak de Silva, CEO of Self-Restore, a company leading the revolution in retail with innovative, unattended solutions, serving customers across over 20 countries. I'm also a former martial artist with nearly 100 full-contact fights. Martial arts isn't just about physical combat, it's a discipline that teaches resilience, focus, respect and the art of mastering oneself, qualities that are crucial in the boardroom as they are in the dojo. Each episode we explore these lessons with expert guests and show how they can help you navigate leadership challenges, make tough decisions and grow personally. Today we are stepping into the world of precision, discipline and transformation with Anna Kuusela. From her early career as the tallest ballerina in London to become a sought-after international leadership coach. Anna's journey exemplifies the strength that comes with rigorous training, resilience, and the ability to balance perfectionism with progress. We'll also explore the importance of coaching and coachability, and how leaders can develop these skills to navigate today's complex and fast-moving business environment. So let's begin our training. Together we'll unlock the black belt within you and elevate your leadership to the next level. Let's take our stance, bow in respect, and step into today's journey of growth and mastery. Thank you for joining, Anna. How are you today?
I'm really well, Aslak. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm honored and humbled to step into the Leadership Dojo together with you today and excited to see what we'll create.
Thank you, Anna. I think the pleasure is all mine and so happy to have you here. But to start with, I just have to ask if you have any martial arts experiences yourself.
Very little. However, we have covered some aspects of martial arts as part of my coaching training. And I know some of the leading coaches in the world are also their background is in martial arts. So it's not completely unknown, but I can't claim I'm an expert of any sort.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that you actually have those expertise, even if you're not the fighter as such. But let's see. But your path to become a ballerina, the tallest ballerina in London, wasn't exactly the path one would have assumed to be. So please share your story to the listeners so that they can also get to know it.
Thank you for asking this question. I often start the introduction to myself by saying that first and foremost, I am a ballet dancer. So that is one of the first identities that I claimed. And I was about 6 years old when my mom took me to see a ballet performance. And I still remember being sat in the audience. I knew that I am going to become a ballet dancer. And looking back now, there was this inner knowing that this is my thing. This is something I need to pursue. So then I did just that. And over time, I was asked and posed with challenges because obviously ballet is not just about your passion and your attention to the practice, but it's also about the physique that you are being asked. And as you already mentioned in the beginning, I became really tall. And also in ballet language, I'm not in the physique that ideally these days the form and shape for dancers is. So again, when I look back now, I realized that I needed to make some choices back then when I was becoming very tall. And I realized that I can never be the shortest or the thinnest. Like that's just not possible. And I thought, okay, so what is there for me? And I realized that ballet ultimately is about delivering experiences, offering gifts to the audience so that they can be transported somewhere through me that they've never been before. And I started focusing on how can I be the performer? How can I be the dancer who brings that experience to the audience? And you know what's interesting is that at the end of my school, my 10-year Vaganova Russian training that I have gone through, I was doing most of the leading roles. Remember, I was still the tallest, but I was doing the leading roles because, there comes a point, and I bet this is the same in martial arts, it's like at some point you have the skills, like you can do the stuff, but then it becomes more about the attention, the artistry, the flow, the beauty that you bring into that experience. It becomes more about who you are. And that's where I cultivated myself. And obviously, I wouldn't have said this if you asked me the same question when I was 15, but this is what I was doing. And so it enabled me to actually proceed and progress to very high levels in this love, art, sport of mine. And so definitely cultivated my character and discipline. And I'm sure that we'll discuss that in the podcast today as well.
Really interesting, and I'm sure there's lots of stories that are kind of cut off from this explanation there. What you were saying, like it must have been super tough, and I mean to become a ballet dancer internationally recognized there and take the leading role. So I mean that must have been hard, but also after and maybe even during your career or dancing career. So you didn't just stay still. So you went all for business and consultation world, right? So tell us a bit of what you've done then professionally as well.
So I'll start by saying that I am naturally a very curious person, which I could claim many of us are. It's a very natural state for us human beings. So I've always been fascinated by learning. So I'm keen to learn many things. And initially, I was very fascinated by my mind and intellectual stimulation. So I went to study economics. So I have a Master of Science in Economics. And that led me to the world of consulting, where, funny enough, I applied to Deloitte, where I started my career. And, there were 200 applicants, many of them very experienced. And I was so green. I was so green. And I remember when they called me, it was 23rd of December, and they said, "So Anna, we had 200 applicants. We are going to make 2 offers, and I'm going to make 1 offer to you now." And in that moment, I'm like, okay, I think this is a moment where I say yes. And that intellectual fascination was exactly what consulting provided me with. And I moved from Helsinki to London to continue dancing and pursue my passion in consulting as well. And, this curiosity towards learning and growing and my own potential, it's just been changing my areas of attention and focus, but it's always been there in some shape or another. So that's kind of my professional background, going from consulting to now becoming a certified leadership coach. So a slight tweak on that journey, I'd like to say, a bigger inner transformation, but very much still my focus has been on transformation, moving from organizational transformation to transformation in us humans and leaders.
Interesting. Yeah. You've been way smarter than me. My mother told me all the time that I need to study while training martial arts. So that's saying that don't try to make a career. If something happens, you get injured. So you need to have a backup plan.
Yes.
And I did have that. I studied, but then anyways, when I had injured myself and couldn't fight anymore, so then I had to start from a really like entry-level position. So I went for telesales or just customer service. I spoke many languages. So then that was the only skill that was actually valued. But you didn't start there the same way. You didn't start from the bottom. You actually got there. So I'm happy to hear, and you were way smarter than me at that time for sure.
Well, Aslak, like I hear that, and at the same time, I do believe there is method behind the madness for all of us. And something that I feel called to share is also that not everything that we do needs to become a profession, or we need to become world class. So even though I don't perform on stages through dancing anymore, and people are like, oh, you just like switch things, it's also the recognition that we change and we evolve throughout our lives, and there's time for one thing and then there's time for another. And as such, there are no mistakes, but there's just more experience from diverse points of life that actually makes us much richer in our beingness. And I would say, therefore, benefit you, for example, in your current leadership role. And it is exactly because of the past choices you have made, which are to many unlinear, but they build the tapestry of who you are. And I believe that is very essential. And if you ask the late Steve Jobs, I'm pretty sure he would say the very same thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And thanks for sharing that. Now maybe go a bit more on like what we as leaders could learn from you to get to our black belt level and even better, so that we know that one doesn't get to the top without being resilient. And you are used to training every day towards your goals, and the goals sometimes are years ahead. So when you coach leaders, so how is this done? Or do you see coaching more like one-off projects just to get to the next stage, and not maybe even going for the black belt, so to say?
So I'd say that my clients want to go for the black belt. They are type A, ambitious. I recognize myself in there as well. So there is that positioning already inherently in my clients that I see. Where I'd like to start is by working with the word goals. So today I want to really focus on the language and the wording we are using, because this shapes how we experience our lives. And the challenge I see with the word goal is that we then orient ourselves in life in a way where we are striving towards that goal, and then life becomes about pursuit. And when we achieve that goal, somehow we often unconsciously anticipate that it is this goal that allows us to be something more. And then myself included, with all my clients, we know that we'll be happy about 7 seconds. And then we'll look into the next summit. We'll look into the next mountain. We're like, what's next? So something I have been adopting very recently in my own life and in the work with my clients is to start thinking more about what is it that we are creating and what are the outcomes that we are desiring to achieve. And when we change this language, and can you see we change a little bit of the underlying energetics behind it, actually now my life becomes more about commitment, alignment, and choosing towards the outcomes that I am creating. So I actually gain more control over my life, and I am committed towards certain outcomes. And this way, it actually becomes more about the process as well. Because I could claim that in ballet, if you only live for the performance, if you say the goal would be the performance, Monday evening, 6 p.m., by the bar, doing the same stuff you've done 10,000 times, 20,000 times, I don't know, it would be very hard to find any joy in that. And ultimately, we all know the journey is what takes the longest. And then when we reach the peak, I know you as like, you're just like, okay, what's next? So if we change this paradigm from let me have this first before I can be it, and change it to let me be it now. And when I be it and I do this thing, then I'll have it and I'll experience it. It changes how we orient towards our lives and how we orient to our leadership and the outcomes that we are creating.
I love that. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, you caught me there as well. So yes, I think I'm moving quite quickly myself to the next goal, but I love that as well. Like that you just need to enjoy the journey. And if you don't enjoy the journey, so that you don't actually enjoy the reaching the goal either. It just means nothing. And in the end, often actually it's nice to win medals or get credits from somebody saying that you were great, but it's just a feeling for that moment. It's not gonna last forever with you. So you're not gonna kind of live in the clouds after one positive comment. So
that's the thing. But also for you to get that medal, you were becoming that person who received that medal already for a while back. You were becoming that person on that Monday, 6 p.m. in the dojo when we were practicing that same move. So that's why it's like the small moments compound, and who we are becoming during these small moments, who we commit to be, choose to be, align ourselves to be, is what creates that medal. So this is like very transformative way of looking at how we wish to live our lives. And obviously we have the challenge that we have been conditioned to do the vice versa thing. So the very opposite. So it requires a bit of reflection here to be like, okay, how is it that I am approaching my outcomes and what I wish to create?
Yeah, very true. So if we like look at a bit from the martial arts background as well, and then the masters, they tend to point out our mistakes and demand for perfection. And sometimes it's even quite cruel with direct feedback or even insults in front of everyone. So you are supposed to perform and everybody hears what you're doing wrong. But still you go to the training and aim for perfection. So I believe that the methods in ballet can be, or at least have been, the same. And so we are used to aiming for perfection. And if you look at your experience with coaching leaders, so how big of a problem is it to aim for perfection instead of progress?
So I'm going back to my ballet days and here. So my first name is Anna Lotta, actually. I don't think you knew this. So
No?
my ballet teacher called me Anna Lotta. So if anyone calls me by that name these days, I immediately get like 10 centimeters longer, with a straight back. And I'm like, I've done something wrong. So the habits do sit in the body. So I'm intrigued by your example and want to ask, why was your teacher doing that? Why were they giving you feedback and correcting you and maybe doing that in front of everyone else? Why? What's the intention?
I think it was more like not to settle for mediocrity. So it was more like that if you really want to be a master, you want to be the best. So it's more about like that you need to be conscious of what you're doing. So you kind of, you don't settle for saying that, I could do it better, but just today I didn't do it better. So you have to always do the best version of yours, or you have to be the best version of yourself today, and tomorrow you might know better and then you improve, rather than kind of cutting slack today that it was almost good enough, but it was a training. So there's a different level in the kind of feeling that what takes you to the goals that you have, or to the black belt, or even to be a world champion and so on. So yeah.
So isn't it interesting? You just said that you are doing something that you might not even be conscious of. And is it interesting that you are doing something that you can't see what you're doing? So could we claim that the coach there or the teacher is looking at what you're doing and giving you feedback with the intention of making you better?
Totally,
right? Yeah, that's the point. It's like they are not saying something for their own ego. They are saying things because they want to unlock more of your greatness. And you said, otherwise I might be average. Yeah, the coach is as interested about your potential as are you, at least on your best days. When you're tired, you might not be, but the coach is still there, aware and awake. So we don't always see ourselves. And at least we don't see ourselves like others see us. And with my clients, it's like, I see something you don't see. I might hear something you don't want to hear. And I am sharing that with the intention of making you the person you want to be. So that's the point of having a coach. And therefore, I'd like to, again, play with the words and say, perfect is a dangerous word because such a thing doesn't exist. So I'd like to say greatness instead. Like, what is your greatest version? And like you said, best just there. It's like, what's your best version? And, today you were not at your best. That's fine. Well, what is your best version? How can we unlock that? And we do need external pairs of eyes, ears, presence to see those things that we are so blind to ourselves. Even I have a coach. Yeah. So this is how I look at the importance of coaching and also accelerating our progress, because indeed we are not just blind to ourselves, but also we are deceiving of ourselves. So we are not being truthful with ourselves. So therefore it's useful to have someone that points the thing out that we don't want to hear, right? But we need to hear, because at the same time, it's painful. Yes. We need it. Yes. Helpful. Yes. So there's a paradox, right? We need it. We don't want it, but we need it.
But how much of that kind of development is then dependent on your personal coachability? So I tend to say, so I remember when I had stopped my fighting and then went for telesales, and then I was really bad at telesales in the beginning. And then I said that, but I'm used to taking punches in my face, so I can handle it. That even if I feel bad, I don't like it. I just want to be better. And then if somebody coached me, so I could immediately take it in and try out. So I was not ashamed to try out something because somebody said. I was super happy that somebody was correcting it. So I believe that's kind of those levels of coachability, so coming from training and being actually influenced by those coaching methods that you were just talking about, and somebody actually willing to make you better. So if you look at leaders and then especially from your role being coaching and helping leaders, so how important is this kind of a coachability and to be able to develop yourself better, and how can you develop that coachability in your opinion?
So obviously that is the most important question. That's the first question I ask, and not necessarily directly from my client. I might ask it from myself. Is this client coachable? Are they humble and willing to learn? And I'd say when you go to your training, obviously there is that environment and setup is automatically assuming that you are available for the feedback that the teacher is going to give you. However, we do have positions with our ego and within our patterns where we might be vulnerable, defensive, more or less open to that feedback. And that's the work that needs to happen. But, if we have that willingness, we want to become better. We're like, can you help me? That's enough. That's where we can get on the journey. But if that isn't there, and I briefly want to speak about the Finnish psyche. So we are both Finnish. And in here, deep in our psyche, lives the Finnish sisu as well, which I would say is about, oh, it's fine. Like, life is hard as a rye bread is one of the phrases we have. It's like, oh, it's supposed to be hard and it's fine. Like, I'm fine by myself. We are not used to pay for our education. Our universities are for free. We don't pay for our education. We haven't gotten that we haven't made investments into ourselves, into our own inner value in ways that many other cultures make that. And therefore, when we become leaders, we are sometimes delusional and we're like, it's fine. Like, I got this far. Like, I never needed any help. And that's just a dangerous position to be in. And quoting Brené Brown, we were at the Nordic Business Forum the other week, where she said, leaders are the only high performers out there without necessary practice. Did you hear that? Leaders are the only performers out there without the necessary practice. Yeah. So I'm now combining a few things, but I think, especially with us Finns, sometimes like, oh, it's fine. I'm fine by myself. It's like, just notice what arises in you when you say that. And I'm not saying you should be hiring a coach, but just becoming more curious towards self and noticing what's happening in me throughout my day could be an interesting question to explore.
Very true. Yeah. What would you say to me? I have this trouble though. So when, as a leader, somebody says that, could you give me direct feedback? So then I'm like, well, to me, it's always feed forward. So I'm not looking at, so what was done, the mistake, or even if in martial arts or in ballet, there you were pointed out the mistake. The purpose was that you would understand what you need to do better, not that was there a mistake done. So I struggle with this a bit. So like people would want me to evaluate them, and then evaluations were done in belt tests maybe, so that then you perform and then we will say at that time. But the reason again was that, are you good enough for the next level? But I have hard time with the business world and leadership in this, like that I understand the principles. I used to be a hard coach. I've knocked out people in the fights, but still I have hard time to kind of evaluate in direct feedback and like grade people. I will always look at that. Okay, what can we do better in the future? Or even if we made a mistake today, it doesn't matter because tomorrow we will be better. So am I doing it the right way, or what's your coaching to me in this case now?
And isn't it beautiful that we desire to do things in the right way? Like there would be one right way to do things. So when someone asks you for that direct feedback, what comes up for you? What emerges in Aslak when that request is made from you?
Well, I mean that I feel like the person, but then I believe, especially in business world, it's not that black and white. So even if he feels something was done wrong or something, it was situational more than actually doing something wrong. And sometimes we missed something which we wouldn't miss later on. So I'm always looking at think that, okay, by knowing what happened, so what can we do in the future? So that's my thinking. So I want to kind of start thinking of the future rather than what was in the past.
So from here, what I'm hearing you say is that when you are being asked for feedback, you seem to be linking that to some sort of failure where someone did something outside the preference in the past. and you don't necessarily want to focus on that because it might seem a bit painful to you, but instead you want to take the conversation into the future. How does that land with you?
Yeah, I think that's exactly how it is. And then kind of I feel uncomfortable in that sense. Of course, being a coach in martial arts as well. So kind of like it's not nice to see the people when they
Right.
do a mistake. So I kind of, it wasn't nice for me either personally. I could take it. But then I'm not sure can the coachee take it? So maybe that's what I'm worried about in a way.
Mm.
And then again, what's the result of it? So will that actually change things, or was it more that they just got a bad feeling out of the feedback?
So I hear your concern for the other, how your feedback is landing. And before we look into that, you also said that you are uncomfortable giving that feedback, and you also know the pain of receiving accurate feedback about your performance. So I challenge you to look under the hood, so to speak, and look at the belief and thinking, the philosophy that you have behind this thing called feedback, because I am now hearing that you're linking it into uncomfortable situations where you don't really want to be, but you want to go somewhere else. So of course you are avoiding this. When this situation arises, you want to escape. So if I now would invite you to consider the moments of feedback that when you have received feedback, for example, in the dojo from your teacher, what are those moments exactly? What do those moments represent for you?
Well, I mean, when time has passed, so I
Mm-hmm.
think I look at them differently now than at that
Mm-hmm.
time. But of course, I mean, it was receiving hard feedback was also brought frustration. So kind of like I felt that I can do better, or sometimes that I felt that I don't know how to do better. So I was like, I felt it unfair that, hey, with the current circumstances, I need help rather than being told that I do something wrong. So I think it was like
Beautiful.
that in my mind a lot of times, yes.
So, in a moment of feedback, someone is actually asking for your help. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yes.
Mm. So, and by the way, just that we are clear, when, like you said, looking in the past, it's a while back. And by the way, our brains remember the past about 50% correct. And the rest, our brains just automatically fill up. So, like, it could very well be that you actually don't remember your past correctly. Just that we are open to that possibility that by us now thinking about the past, we could actually change our memory. And this is how the mind works. So if we are now open to this idea that actually those moments of feedback were an important point for your growth and betterment, and now you're like, and I wish I got more tools in that moment, a little bit more advice, tips, like how do I then become better? I see you smiling.
Yes, yes. I
Yeah.
am smiling, yes.
Yeah. It's like, what if the moments of feedback are these moments of, oh, like something in this current thing isn't for the other or for you, like something's not working exactly how we would like that to work. What is that? And how can we support each other to move forward from this situation? How uncomfortable does that feel now?
Yeah, a lot better, I'd say, yes.
Mm-hmm.
No.
So what's arising in you? What's changing? What's happening?
Well, I mean, that kind of feels a positive tone in my thinking and the feeling. So, okay, that maybe it's not about me either, kind of like it's about the other person who wants to become better. And that's the way they just communicate it. It's not that they don't know my style or giving the coaching or giving the feedback. They just want to be better. And then they come to me to ask for help. And then it's kind of the feeling is that, okay, let's give them help. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you're there to give them help, who are you being when you come to that situation? What sort of qualities are you bringing in?
Well, I mean, that again comes from, yeah, if I look at from the martial arts. So, of course, I might be the coach of the black belt there. So, kind of like they look up on me and believe that I can actually help them to become better.
Mm. And that sort of curiosity of finding out what is in here and how can I support this individual go forward? Because isn't it interesting? Imagine the trust that is placed on you that someone comes to you and wants to share something that they might think, oh, I've made a mistake. Isn't that a demonstration of trust towards you and your leadership? that someone opens up to you and shares this thing. Yes?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So when this happens, for you to be there available to support this person to go forward. And by the way, I am honoring your vulnerability and your radical candor in this moment, because the thing is that most of us never think about our underlying beliefs, thinking, and philosophy towards these things. And then we continue using the same patterns and habits that we have used in the past, and they are not getting us anywhere. So by you now recognizing that actually, this situation, what is it really about? It's about supporting this person to go forward. It's not about who did what. It's not about a mistake. It's just like, how can we be better in the future, right? So simply by doing this, we have dismantled what we saw before. Because remember, you don't see the world as it is. You see the world as you are. So when you've now changed your glasses from the earlier, oh, it's uncomfortable, like I want to go in the future, I don't want to talk about mistakes, let me wear the glasses of this person wants to share something really important with me, and they might be pretty vulnerable because they might be, I don't know, but they might be thinking that I made a mistake. Let me be in this moment with them and let me help them to see the future in a different way, so that they might need new thoughts, they might need new habits, they might need new tools. Let me be that bridge that helps them to get into the future. Imagine if you brought this quality of leadership into a situation. So many of my clients say, I just don't have time. Everyone's so busy. It's like, this is the time that you need to have conversation. It takes you 5 minutes, but if you're there, you have forever changed something in your relationship with this individual, in your level of trust, and in that person.
A great example of coachability or coaching, and thanks for coaching me here. Maybe
Thank
kind
you.
of moving forward about a bit of thinking. So like if you look at the agility, so in martial arts and in leadership, so that's super important. So in martial arts, you say that styles make fight. So I remember I took part in these tournaments where there are different martial arts styles taking part, and I was supposed to fight 2 times European medalist in Taekwondo, which is very strong in kicking. And that used to be my strength in this kind of more open martial arts where I was good in kicking and fast, but I knew that he was better because that was his expertise. So I needed to adjust my style so that I need to maybe wrestle more or something just to be able to win him, because that's his style was against me, and I wasn't, even though that was my strength normally, so I wasn't good at that. I lost the fight. I wasn't good enough in that, but I learned the lesson after that I actually need to be more adjusting that, so understanding the situation. If we think so, how can leaders then cultivate this kind of agility to adapt to the unpredictable nature of business environments while maintaining still the kind of focus and discipline, so that they don't just get carried away because situations change, but they still understand that every situation is different and every human is different?
Oh, wow. So many things emerge from that. And thank you for sharing that example again, like my ignorance around martial arts. I'm like, wow, okay, there are different styles. So first of all, let's start by articulating and naming what you've just said in the arena, in the dojo of leadership. It's understanding what others are doing and responding to that. Yeah. So, I'm often like, life will keep doing its thing. And especially today, life keeps doing its thing, even with more velocity, right? More information than ever. Things are changing quicker than ever. It's more complex than ever. It's more uncertain than ever, right? So ultimately, what is under our control is who we are being in that moment and how we respond. So for you, being in that dojo is like, okay, so what is happening? And you making the choice from within yourself is, how do I respond to this thing? And here, there's an important distinction between reaction and response. Because the external world is magnetic, with all of the drama is so magnetic. It's so easy to be drawn into the new shiny object, or into, oh my gosh, like they are talking about that thing. Oh, did you hear what the other? It's just like the mind just is so hungry, and the mind just wants to go to all of the details and the exciting things and the rest of it, which means that you are reacting. So if you did that, in the dojo, you would lose because the other person is more awake and they're going to hit you in the head, right? So I remember I saw this brief video where this guru was speaking and he was being asked, how is he always so centered? And he said that after, I don't know how many years or decades of practice, he said, it's not about being here. It's about having the skill to return here. And this is what I see is so important is, first of all, knowing what here is. Who am I? And how do I return here? So if you imagine being like a tree, it's like, your trunk, your core, who you are being because you have defined that. And then, sometimes it's a bit windy. How do you return to your core? And I think this is the biggest exercise that leaders are having today in terms of self-awareness and self-mastery. And also, I'd like to invite the leaders to consider that in that trunk, in that core, there are actually a lot of latent, dormant capabilities and capacities that we have not yet unlocked. There's more potentiality in there, but we need to become more discerning with our minds and with the external world, and finding that understanding of like life is happening, how are we responding? It becomes like a dance. This becomes like the martial arts. I don't know, is it battle or what's the right word? The fight.
Yeah, fight is
where
better,
it's a constant, right? There's it's a flow. It's a dance. It's constant movement. Something happens and you respond. Then, it's just like a constant dance where you are an active participant of this whole thing. If you are not in the dojo, this wouldn't be happening. You're an active participant, not just reacting, right? So this is, I think, again, it's like I'm doing like a mental massage here for all of you, being like, how am I orienting myself towards my life and who am I being? Who am I being? That's one of the most important questions that we need to decide for ourselves, not allow the external environment to decide for us.
Very true, yeah. And I think you kind of covered there partly also on the kind of the focus and presence there as well. So if you're in a fight, so you need to be fully present there. It doesn't mean that the focus is all the time or constantly the same, but you need to be present. So you need to understand that you're in a fight. And then if you look at some leadership, so how would you then transfer this to leadership principles? So of course you're leading all the time and you go to tough situations. And I tend to say that in a fight that if you lose a point, so it's not enough to get the point back, you need to get 2 points to be able to win. And often in these leadership situations, I do see even myself doing that. Okay, notice you made a mistake, you got feedback, so you basically apologize, and then maybe gets to the even points, but you should actually maybe act more. But if we are fully present, fully focused, so you actually avoid this mistake, and then you don't need to kind of apologize or kind of get ahead because you're in the moment, you do the right calls and that. So how can then leaders enhance the focus to make better decisions and lead more effectively so that it doesn't kind of, you don't make the mistakes that you knew that could happen if you're not paying attention or you're not focused? Is there a way?
Well, you're going to love where I'm going to go first. And I'm just going to say, what is a mistake? So, because like I understand we live in the land of duality where we are so quick to say, it's good or bad, right or wrong, was this success or failure? And our range of preference is so narrow that when anything happens outside of that, it causes us discomfort. And not a challenge per se. And I'm going to say, of course, like I'm in the same boat with you. However, one important understanding is that, again, we can play with our mind and understand how we can actually use our minds the right way. Like, what is the mind here for? And I'm going to use my personal life as an example. So when I was in my late 20s, I separated from my long-standing boyfriend. And at that time, and for a proper while after, it felt like the worst thing that ever happened to me. And after that, maybe, I don't know, maybe a decade after that, now when I look back, it's one of the biggest blessings that ever happened to me. Like that moment that was painful, sure, but that moment catapulted me into London, into very important insights about myself, into further experiences, and onto the path I am now. So understanding that we can work with the mind, but also we can work with our perspectives is such an important factor. So just like being aware of how we are looking at things and maybe how everything can be happening for us. But the other thing I would say around that, your question was around how can we ensure as leaders that we make good decisions and stay present to what is.
Yeah, so basically leadership is still anyways constantly happening. So how do we kind of then, or can you actually coach to be present and have that presence and being able to focus in the moments as well, so that you don't, I know the mistake word might be a wrong one, but kind of like that you do things that you are not proud of and you know knew that you could have done better, but you just didn't act the way you should have acted. Yeah.
Sure, how human of you, right? It's like, don't we all, and by the way, when you meet with that moment, like now your beautiful example around feedback, when you are experiencing discomfort, it's an area for you to look at because there's something in there that you must learn, right? So staying present and where to focus is so important because without presence, we can't change anything. So in that moment when we were coaching around that feedback piece, we were here and we were looking at what's actually here to transform that. So if you're wanting to make any transformational change, you can't make that while your mind is in the fridge with the ice cream. Yeah, with the leaders, it's understanding from moment to moment awareness and understanding what's the quality that I bring into these situations, which, by the way, is a big ask because we are so accustomed to throw ourselves into so many things because we are glamorizing the busyness and the back-to-back Zoom meetings without understanding that we also need to be nurturing the quality of our awareness and the quality of our presence. And I claim that if we continue and nurture this in dormant, that we have this within all of us. Like we know what presence means. You know how we know that? Because let me ask you, when do you know when someone's not present?
Well, the feeling is gone there and maybe not looking into your eye or says, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We know that. We know immediately when someone's not present. So we have this within us, but it needs special attention to be cultivated. And my leaders who are bringing this into the table, not only are they doubling, but they are quadrupling, 5xing the outcomes that they are creating while starting to demonstrate higher levels of energy and fulfillment in their lives. So I'm not just talking about, high performance in the traditional sense of like, oh, let's get you where you want to be in terms of like numbers and figures and performance. But let's get you to become that person that you want to be. Like, what are your values? Who do you want to be? What sort of life do you want to live? What's your daily experience? What's your energy like? Right? This is the work. And from here, from this place, some people talk about holistic, but it's like, this is like, who are you being as a unique human being? And from here, completely different quality of leadership and experience of your leadership emerges. At least this is what I see with my clients.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks. And I wanted to thank you for sharing your own story about your long-term boyfriend and then the separation. So, I mean, that's a huge thing. Thanks for sharing that. So if you then coach leaders to be able to do this kind of transformation and really understand, so how do you do that then? How does it compare to your own experiences in ballet coaching? So are they the same or is now the business leader, the coaching for transformation different?
Oh, what a beautiful question. I'd say that if I look back now, obviously ballet teaching is more on the surface where, at least at that time where I went, the underlying work around my attitude, my intention, my beliefs was left to me. Like I was left to my own devices. And obviously, being 10, 15, what do you know about this stuff? Because we are not being taught this stuff at school. So the thing with coaching is that, you can't be with people with things where you haven't been yourself. So for example, I'm going to bring up your feedback example again, because if I hadn't been uncomfortable myself, or if I hadn't been exploring this similar type of emotionally uncomfortable situation myself, I would quickly guide you away from that situation because I would be really uncomfortable going somewhere where I haven't been. So coaching is beautiful profession in a way that we need to be embodying and living the work as coaches. And when I do that, I personally like to think that where I come from and my intention, and when I am with my clients and what emerges in the moment, it comes from a deep place of resonance, of knowing. And then there's that invitation for my client to take whatever they want to take, because ultimately I can bring the horse to water, but I can't make the horse to drink, right? So there is this realization of, I have offerings, and what are you willing and ready to learn? We are all at such different places of our journey. So I could be saying, I'll tell you what my client told me last week. It's not like for this session I was any different, at least to my knowing. Like, I tried to put my best foot forward, give my presence, give my love to all of my clients. And so this session was nothing different from that. And my client said, Anna, I just don't understand how you can always say exactly what I need to hear. It's like you have a magic tongue. And I said, because your ears are open, your heart is open to hear it. So this is the piece where that coachability, that do we have a learner mindset, or are we being know-it-all? Like, it's fine, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine. Or are we, is there something for me? Is there, how am I listening to this podcast? What is that? I think there's something here for me, for my journey, something. Let me throw this invitation out there for everyone. Something here that is going to permanently change something within me. And I look back 3-5 years from now and I'm like, whoa, I remember that moment. I was listening to the podcast and I realized this one thing. And this is how we are putting our attention into a specific point of time. I have my entire presence here and I choose, right? I choose this moment to be a significant moment in my life. And this is how we create the meaning, the stories, the beliefs, the commitment, the results, the outcomes, whatever it is in our lives, by that attention, possession, presence, intention, attention, all of it that we have to any moment. So with my clients, through my own experience and through my own current understanding, level of understanding where I am, how I can see them, how I can see something that they don't see, that they don't want to hear potentially. Often my clients actually do want to hear it. And if I'm able to offer that through my, I want to say, skilled eye and ear, is something that unlocks that unlinear path, that locks that, let's triple X, let's 5X these things, that's where it unlocks, because my clients so successful already, they've done all the stuff. It's like they are really super smart and on high performance and the rest of it. It's like the next level where it comes from. It is often in those places that they least expect. It's often those places where they become the most vulnerable. It's those places where you went. It's like, I'm uncomfortable with saying like, oh, maybe you did something right. It's those moments where we unlock those next level things, those latent capabilities. And so my leaders can be more of who they want to be in their daily lives, and are also more aligned with their own truths and their values into their behavior and action, not just, in their thought, but it's just the whole thing bleeds out into who we are being in our everyday life. Sorry, that went a bit long, but maybe there was something there.
There was for sure. And I mean, this tends to happen that when we have a conversation, so we could carry on a lot of time. But one thing that I can promise to the listeners, that if you missed something and that you felt that were supposed to be asked, and you have questions either for me or Anna, so please just post them in the chat or where you can read the reviews. And I promise, as with Nordic Business Forum, that we will come back to that. But hey, thank you so much, Anna, for joining today. And how do people find out you and more information about you? If there was something missing here now that they felt that, hey, I need to study more what Anna is saying. So if they want to connect or consume your content, so where can they find information about you?
I'm like, if you feel like something's missing, are you always assuming that in your life that something is always missing? Maybe this was as complete as it gets. Maybe this was just like that perfection that we mentioned earlier. Greatness. So obviously I'm on social media. I have my own website, annakuusela.com. So, and then on LinkedIn, Instagram, and the rest of it. So easy to find me. And also probably you can find me through Aslak as well, if nothing else.
Thank you. And I really love that you still coach me in the end. So that kind of like, maybe this was perfection. Who knows? We'll see.
Exactly.
Yeah. But hey, thank you for all your listeners for joining us today in this episode of the Black Belt in Leadership. And I hope you found today's conversation as insightful and inspiring as I did. And a huge thanks to you, Anna Kuusela, for sharing your wisdom and experience with us here. If you enjoyed today's episode, so please subscribe, rate, and leave a reviews. And it really helps us to grow and reach more leaders like you. Don't forget to tune in next time as we continue exploring how the timeless lessons of martial arts can elevate your leadership to new heights. Until then, keep training and unlocking the black belt within you.